Well, good afternoon, everyone, and it's nice to be here in our new setting for the afternoon briefings. One advantage is that it does have two lecterns, so the Minister of Health and Social Care and I no longer have to do our back and forth. Let me hand over to the Minister for today's update on testing and cases. I know he also has some other important updates for us. David.
Thank you, Chief Minister. The total number of tests undertaken now stands at 5,094. The total test results returned is 5,076, meaning we are awaiting 18 results. The total number of positive results remains at 336. There are no new cases identified, and our number of active cases remains at 0. A couple of other things I just want to briefly touch on, because I know they have come up, is in relation firstly to letters to those who are shielding. The Department of Health and Social Care is aware that the deadline is approaching that was in the original letter, and fresh letters are going out now to those who are shielding and in the vulnerable category with updated advice. We have also been looking, in light of the situation we're currently in the island, in relation to our visitors policy at Nobles Hospital and also the department's care homes. That policy has now been updated, where in certain circumstances we will allow visiting, and that policy will now be put forward and published online. Thank you, Chief Minister.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Now, it did fill me with such pride yesterday when we were able to announce that we had no active cases on the island. Our last remaining case completed their 14-day self-isolation and the contact tracing team completed their work. Before I move on, I would like to thank our joint COVID 111 and contact tracing team for all the work they have done to help suppress the spread of the virus. A contact tracing capacity has existed in the Isle of Man for some time. Previously, it has dealt with things like food poisoning and sporadic outbreaks of diseases such as tuberculosis or measles, but they adapted and scaled up quickly for this new threat. They were tracing COVID from our first confirmed case on the 18th of March. The COVID 111 line was created as a result of COVID and was operational 2 days after the first case. It was a UK concept, but a Manx model. The United Kingdom across kindly shared their algorithms, but we Manxified for our local needs, and it is worth remembering that our COVID 111 line, unlike its cousins across in the United Kingdom, is staffed by clinicians. In the week where we have been able to say that we have 0 active cases, we should not forget to pay tribute to them. As I'm sure you will have seen across the water in the United Kingdom, our friends there are racing to get their own contact tracing system up and running as they battle to reduce the spread. So back to our current situation. On Monday we talked about this moment. I told you then what it does and doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that the virus is no longer on our island. I will never be complacent about this invisible killer. I will not be saying this afternoon that we are COVID-free. I will not be declaring mission accomplished. I will not be saying that new confirmed cases in the future is impossible. In fact, I would be surprised if in the weeks and months to come we did not see new cases. But I hope that if we do, it will be a small number that we can track and isolate. But one thing I do need to say this afternoon is thank you. You have achieved something amazing, and because of this, we can step forward with a new boldness, a new confidence. If there is any virus left on our island, the risk of transmission is exceptionally low. So the time is now right for us to up our pace towards our new Manx normal. Now, I usually save Churchill quotes for Tynwald, but there is one that I've used before that seems perfect for this moment. Now, this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. So let's move into the next chapter. The Council of Ministers met today. As has become our normal pattern, we reviewed the key indicators which showed a positive picture. We reviewed progress against our Stay Safe roadmap, which we agreed had been progressing well. And we discussed what we could do next to reopen our society and get the island moving again in a safe way. The 15th of June will be a key day for our island, and it is just 11 days away. We agreed that we are still on track to change our advice on social distancing. We cannot remove the need for social distancing completely. I do think that it will be part of our lives for some time to come. As I've mentioned before, if our positive results continue, from the 15th of June, we will reset our social distancing to the World Health Organization's at least 1 metre, or as I find it easier to picture, keeping folk at arm's length. But more on that as we get closer. But it is certainly looking good for the 15th. Now, as well as bringing us that little bit closer together, I know this will have an important read across to so many of the practical aspects of our lives. From the 15th of June, all schools will be reopening in readiness for pupils to return. Preparations are well underway for this. I should remind people that attendance will be voluntary until the next academic year. We want you to be ready and comfortable with the decision. If you haven't already, please check in with your head teacher to see how this will affect you and your children. Nurseries and playgroups will progressively be able to increase the children they accept, with the children of retail workers from this Monday and then all children from the 15th. From the 15th of June, we are planning to change the rules around outdoor gatherings. I'm sorry, but we are not quite ready to remove all limits on this. For the time being, what we do want to do is just keep numbers down to a place where we can contact trace quickly if we need to. As things stand, we plan to change the 10 outside part of our 10 outside, 2 inside rule to 30 outside, 2 in. We did discuss what we might be able to do with the 2 inside part. The challenge for us has been the research does suggest that the risk of transmission is the highest in the home. We don't want to have to regulate how many people you can invite into your home, but we need a little bit more time on this. Please bear with us and we will update you soon. Now, like the change to social distancing, the change to the rule on outdoor gatherings will also have effects right across our society. Sports, recreation and other social activities that have been limited by the gatherings rule can now scale up. The Department of Education, Sport and Culture will continue to work with all sporting bodies to ensure this happens as soon as possible and, of course, as safely as possible. It has been good to see a number of businesses taking advantage of the pretty good weather this week by offering outdoor dining. Others I know have continued to offer takeaway and delivery services. But we can't rely on the Manx weather to be as glorious as it has been. From the 15th of June, we are ready for all restaurants and cafes to also offer indoor dining. Detailed guidance has already been produced on how to do this safely, and I am grateful to the hospitality industry for their excellent collaboration on this. While we are on hospitality, the Council of Ministers agreed this morning that we are ready for hotels to open properly from the 15th of June. Now, of course, there are no tourists coming from off-island and there is only a modest staycation market, so I am fully aware that this will not at all answer the challenges through these tough times for the sector. We will continue to do what we can to support them. What we will be doing from the 15th of June is removing the restrictions that are currently in place and leaving it to individual businesses to explore what might be possible for them. And again, guidance is ready. Does that feel like a lot already for the 15th? It certainly does to me, but I'm pleased to say that there is a lot more. And the two things that do seem to be on a lot of people's minds are pubs and gyms. On pubs, I've mentioned before that we were looking to remove the restrictions on the 29th of June. This remains the case for the moment, but from the 15th of June, as an interim step, we are ready for pubs to open in the same way as restaurants. So they can open for seated service, indoors or out, where there is a substantive meal served. Now, this may sound a little technical, but the description of substantial meals served appears in current licensing language, and the industry is familiar with it. In essence, for the moment, they need to be serving a proper seated meal, with drinks as part of that, if you wish. It needs to be food-driven. As we head into this new phase, we still need to be able to track any traces that might pop up. A crowded bar with people standing up and moving around remains a small step too far. This is why we are not quite ready to allow bars and nightclubs to open. Nor are we ready for large numbers of people to come together indoors in cinemas and theatres. We will, of course, keep this under review. We might not be too far off if we keep the results in the right place. The question of gyms has been a challenge. COVID-19 is spread by water droplets. Gyms are places where there can be increased levels of respiration and perspiration. Working with the industry, we believe we have found a compromise that works. Wet facilities such as steam rooms and saunas, etc., will need to remain closed due to the increased risk of the virus surviving in warm and humid environments. The guidance that is coming together will also prohibit, for the moment, class activities that involve intensive aerobic activity. With these two exceptions, with enhanced hygiene protocols and with some reorganisation of areas of the gym that see intense activity, treadmills for example, we think we can make it work safely. We will continue to work with the industry to finalise the guidance and hope that gyms can open on that basis on the 15th of June. And I hope to be able to confirm that next week. A quick word on borders, and I know it is on people's minds. I would just like to make clear where the Council of Ministers is on this important issue. We know that at some stage we will have to make some changes to allow our residents to travel and our businesses to do their work. But equally, we are in agreement that now is not the time. We are not ready to put at risk the island's achievements. I've said before that the level of infection in the United Kingdom, while not the only factor, is a key indicator. Now, while there are some signs of a steady decline there is still a fair way to go. The Council of Ministers agreed that our priority for the moment should be letting the island get back up and running, getting our healthcare, our society and our economy as close to normal as possible. Borders is not for now. I know that there has been a huge amount of information. The full speech should be up on our website later this evening, and you can, of course, play back through social media channels. So just before I go to questions, I would like to address two issues that I know have been causing some real concern over the last day or so. Firstly, on the situation in the United States. We know that over the years, many from the Isle of Man have made the US their home. We have deep links with the country and the people. The death of George Floyd was shocking and a disturbing incident, and we hope that justice will prevail. And I do hope they can find a way to emerge from the current challenges as a strong and united nation. Secondly, on comments made by a Manx Radio presenter last night. Now, I didn't hear the comments directly. I have been told that Manx Radio is now investigating what happened, and it would not be appropriate for me to comment any further while that investigation is underway. However, any publicly funded body is expected to demonstrate the highest standards and ethics. I will now take questions. And first we have today is Tim Glover from Manx Radio. Tim.
First, my Chief Minister and Health Minister, I just want to go to the example of Guernsey because they've been clear of no new confirmed cases now for 35 days, and it's excellent news, the path we're on. Their Director of Public Health, and you touched on this, but it's just one part of what they're saying, and they agree they expect more cases potentially during this period. That wouldn't be a surprise, but the advice is if anyone has any symptoms, however mild, they must come forward to be tested. Please don't think you don't want to adversely influence our results. And I know there's great pride on the island at the moment that we've had this run of results, but that little bit of advice, if you are feeling unwell, don't be afraid you're going to be the one to upset the apple cart. You must still seek advice, yeah?
Absolutely, Tim, and thank you very much for pointing that out. It's a very good point. We've got here, we do think we will have small outbreaks every now and then. We have to allow our people back onto the island. We will have to make further relaxations for our are people to go off to see loved ones who are seriously ill, etc. There will be still the need for key workers. So at some stage we may see a small outbreak back on the Isle of Man, but please make sure if you have the symptoms that you declare it straight away, that you get tested. You won't be in any trouble. This is just one of those things, and it's really important that if you feel you have the symptoms, that you continue to ring our 111 COVID hotline. I don't know, David, do you want to add anything to that?
Just to echo what you said, Chief Minister, it is absolutely essential that if people have symptoms, they do present. They're actually doing an island the service by actually doing so. They would actually be doing the island a disservice if they had the symptoms and did not present. As the Chief Minister has said, although it's a nice situation to be in, to have 0 cases, there will be outbreaks every so often. This is a virus. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. So there will be cases of the odd case here and there, or the odd couple of cases here and there, and it should not put people off from coming forward. It's a medical issue, and people with a medical issue should present to have that resolved.
Thank you, Tim. Another question?
Yes. We've heard from Andy in a van. He's volunteered to bring over university students' belongings, but he's applied to the Cabinet Office, obviously, for an exemption. Where does he stand on that? Because he's not got one as such yet, and obviously he doesn't want to go away and have to self-quarantine.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think the Cabinet Office are trying to take advice from public health to see is there a safe way for someone to go back and come back to the island on a regular basis without having to self-quarantine. I know it's something that I don't think at the moment is allowed under the regulations, but I know they are looking at it. I don't know. Again, David, have you heard anything on this one?
The current situation is, as far as I'm aware, that there are certain firms that are able to offer that service. I believe that the Department of Education has been putting out the contact details for those particular firms for people to be able to get in touch with. But I don't know the specific case that you've raised, Tim.
Okay, right. Next we have Chris Cave from Energy FM. Hi, Chris. Fast am I.
Good evening, sir. If we go for another 2, 3, 4 weeks with no new cases, would you be willing to go back to normal on the island, or will you be insisting on a new normal, even though the figures would appear to show we've dealt with the virus effectively?
Well, I suppose we need to look at the data and what's happening around the rest of the world and with our near neighbours. Personally, I think the 1 metre social distancing will be something that will have to stay for the foreseeable future until the spread of infection or the number of cases in the UK has gone down significantly, and or a vaccine has presented itself. I think the new norm on the Isle of Man, yes, we could probably open up people going into one another's houses and larger gatherings, etc. on the island. Some of the last things to do will be the likes of theatres and nightclubs, especially the likes of a nightclub. Sadly, it's where people speak and shout because they can't hear one another with the music, and that's how you can spread the infection. So there will be fairly opening up, I think, of the whole of the island in the future. But when it comes to borders, I'm not so convinced that we won't have some form of border control and maybe border agency going forward in the future until, as I say, the UK infection rate is significantly reduced and or a vaccine comes in. But we are doing our utmost to get to a new Manx normal where we can open everything up. But what we want to be clear is we do not want to rush too fast and find that we've overstepped the mark. We allow a second wave to get onto the island, and then we've got to go back to square one. That would really damage business, and I think it's really important that people aren't that we don't unnecessarily take a risk where people would have to go back to all the various rules we've had to do and businesses would have to shut. That would really damage people's mental health and our economy. So we just have to... There is some people who want to rush and just lift everything. I think that would be a personal mistake.
Thank you. And we've had some fantastic weather recently. The news that pubs can begin to reopen from June the 15th will be a move that many raise a glass to tonight, I'm sure. What is the guidance around beer gardens, though? Will people be able to use them without ordering a meal?
No, the guidance is that from the 15th they will be able to, it's meal based, so you can go down and have a meal. The meal must be the key element, and then you can have a drink with your meal. But until the end of the month, the 29th, we're not yet ready to allow people just to go into a pub and have a drink and prop up at the bar or go into a beer garden. So it's an interim measure where food from the 15th will be allowed to be served in pubs where you can have a drink, but the food is the main show, I suppose. But by the 29th, if all the data carries on well, then yes, pubs will be open, but obviously there will be still the 1 metre social distancing and good hygiene, and the pubs have been working, the representatives have been working really well with public health to come up with a way forward.
And again, does that going in for the meal mean you can go in with a group of friends, or is that strictly household based?
Well, I think as long as you keep your social distancing, you will be able to go with different people. We've just announced an increase on the 15th from 10 to 30. So as long as you're keeping your distance from the people, and 1 metre makes it a lot easier to do. You know, the 2 metres would have made it really hard, but the 1 metre rule will enable that to happen. But please be sensible. We've always trusted the Manx public to be sensible. We are here way ahead of schedule because the great Manx public have followed the rules and regulations, have been sensible, and we're able to move forward much quicker. I think if we'd have said to any members of the public in April time, do you think by the 4th of June we were announcing major relaxations of going out for a drink, 30 people being able to mix? I think people just wouldn't have thought that was possible, but we're in a really good place, but we can't abuse that situation because we don't want to damage the further freedoms that we want to make, because we as a government want to get out of people's lives. We've had to step in to protect life with the health issue, but as soon as we can get out of people's lives, the better. But we have to do it sensibly and ensure that there's no second wave as a result of being too quick. Thank you very much, Chris. Right, next we have is Simon Richardson from Business 365. Good afternoon, Simon. Faster Mai.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My first question for you, Chief Minister, please. The retail sector was already in difficulty before the COVID crisis, fighting a war against online retailers. Now, many have now reopened, but with stringent health and safety restrictions. One said to me recently, it was like working with an arm tied behind his back. Now, I've been to Douglas, like many other people, and found the queuing and the health issues something of a hassle, and I'm sure it's the same for the retailers themselves. The fear for them is that shoppers will simply give up and abandon the high street for the online. Is there anything extra that can be done to help retailers?
Well, obviously, we are looking at that as we speak, Simon. It's a fair point. I think going from 2 metres down to 1 should be a big help. You'll be able to have more people in your shops. And if the data goes along, it won't be long before, who knows, that 1 metre is reduced. But it's something we are certainly looking at. We know it's been a problem, but equally, I think for the public have seen the benefit of having local produce, local products on the island in the early days, especially when there was concern about getting anything over. If the UK had been in such a position that they weren't able to have the drivers to come over with the product to the island, we would have been in real trouble. So I would hope that the public remember that having locally produce, whether it be food or products that are sold in our retail shops, the importance of supporting local is absolutely key. So we'll obviously be promoting that, and anything that we can do to help retail businesses as they start up again, we will do. And I know the Department for Enterprise is looking into this as we speak. Your next question, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, this crisis has been unique in so many ways, not least it's the first that we've experienced in the social media era. We all know the negatives of online forums, etc. But during the COVID-19 crisis, it's proved itself to be a lifesaver in many ways, particularly for people living alone. Could I ask you, and this could apply to both of you really, for your perspectives on social media in this current crisis?
Well, obviously, social media, I've personally found Teams really useful. I've been able to chair my meetings every day without having to meet my colleagues, but we've been able to get on with making the decisions. We had our first Council of Ministers meeting this afternoon where we were all in the same room. Now, it was a big room and we all observed the 2-metre distancing, I hasten to add. But that sort of technology has been really good. And I think, yeah, if you're lonely and you're wanting to see what your friends, family and loved ones are getting up to, either Teams, Zoom or Skype or a number of other areas. We've been having family quizzes on Teams, for example. But I think there are still the same minuses of social media where false news, fake news is put out there, where someone only has 1/5 of a story, and before you know it, people are really upset, they're frightened, they're worried, and it's all not relevant. So I just think people should really think before they push that button. Is it legal, truthful and decent, what you're saying? But yes, I think more of us will be becoming more digitally minded as we go along. I don't know, David, you're far more technically useful than myself.
Well, I think it's been a blessing in many ways. Obviously, particularly while we've had the rules around visiting in the hospital. So people have been able to speak to relatives over various electronic means, particularly, again, while we've got the borders closed, so people can't visit their close relatives in the UK or other jurisdictions. There's been very good remote ways of accessing that. I've spoken to several people who would they'll probably kill me for calling them in the elderly category, but they're over 80, who have actually come to me and said they've learnt new skills that they never thought they would have, that they feared technology before, but now actually because of this, they've bitten the bullet, they've learned how to use things like Skype, and there's no turning back. They've said that they will embrace it fully. But I do echo the Chief Minister's comments as well, that when used properly and sensibly, social media can be a real blessing. But unfortunately, sometimes there is the downside that people do use it for whatever reasons to spread false or malicious stories. And I would just urge the same as the Chief Minister, that people think before they post, because while some people might find putting these stories out there amusing, it does actually scare people. So there's two sides to the coin, but I do think, you know, it has really, really helped people, and certainly it has helped people's mental health during the lockdown period we were in.
Yeah, if I can give you one example of one of the emails I was getting from a number of people in the first days of the outbreak, was that the coronavirus, COVID-19, had been caused by the same people that were developing 5G from China. And you know, it was laughable, but sadly people were believing this and then sending me emails about what was I going to do about it. So that's the minuses, but the fact that people have been able to work from home, I see the new normal is that more people, more of us, will choose to work from home going forward. And I know of businesses that are saying they've given notice on their buildings because that they rent, because they're going to run their business from home now. So that's something we as a government have to enable and maybe speed up our digital fibre to the cabinet going forward. But yeah, good point, Simon. Thanks very much. Right, and last but not least, we have Josh Stokes from ITV. Josh, how are you?
Thank you. I'm all right. Thank you. Good afternoon to you both. Obviously, it's great news that there are now no active cases on the island, but is there a worry now that the idea of herd immunity has not been achieved in any form, considering the chances are the virus will once again be on the Isle of Man at some stage, particularly when the borders reopen, which could be more dangerous than the first wave?
Yeah, we do have to be very careful of that, Josh. We clearly haven't got any herd immunity. I think we're probably looking at the lowest, probably 0.5% to maybe 3% at the highest when we do the testing. That we're on the new test that we've got 10,000 cases. We'll be able to get a clearer picture of just how many people on the island have had coronavirus or COVID-19. But we clearly haven't had it. I mean, it's a success of the way that we've handled it, that we haven't got big numbers, but as a result, we haven't got a large proportion of the population with herd immunity. But then herd immunity can be very misleading, Josh, because we still do not know to this day whether or not if you've had it, you've got a lifetime defence against it, whether it's a 6-month defence against it or whether within a few weeks you've lost your immunity to it and that you're more than capable of catching it again. So as a result of that, and I know our friends in the Channel Islands are in a very similar position as us with a low percentage of people who have had the coronavirus, and therefore that's one of the reasons why we still need to be cautious, we still need to be sensible, social distancing, washing our hands, just being sensible, really. And that's why some of the measures that we would want to, we want where we can to remove. We just have to be cautious and make sure that we don't take away all our defences against this invisible enemy, because if we do get a second wave, we need to be able to react quickly to it with our testing and tracing.
Okay, thank you. And it broke a bit at the start, but I believe there was an announcement on hospital visits. Can you give some more detail on what circumstances will people be allowed to visit? I think it was from you, Health Minister.
Right, David.
Yes, I certainly am. I certainly am willing to give more information there, Josh. The full policy will be published, so people will be able to see it. But for instance, we recognise that friends and family and support for people in hospital is absolutely crucial. And we do thank people for bearing with us during this. It's not a full relaxation. So, for instance, visitors who are sick or showing symptoms of COVID-19 will under no circumstances be allowed within the hospital. All visitors have to complete a registration form and a health declaration, and they also must consent for their information to be retained by the Department of Health and Social Care for the purposes of containing the spread, so contact tracing if we needed to do it. We are going to allow 2 essential visitors in exceptional circumstances. So exceptional circumstances would be things like end of life, on compassionate grounds, and it will have to be the same people for any subsequent or agreed visits. We will allow 1 essential visitor to be permitted to visit someone who is COVID negative in the ward area. But again, there will be rules and regulations around that. So we are in the process of rolling that out today, actually. But people will need to make contact with the relevant medical area and arrange any visitation. It's not a case of people will just be able to show up at the hospital and go and visit like in normal circumstances. So anyone wanting to undertake that will need to contact the relevant area of the department.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Josh. Tim, did you want to ask a question on a variant of that?
Yeah, just a quick question to the Health Minister, if possible. You mentioned shielding letters, and we talked about those that have obviously been very isolated during this pandemic. We're getting questions about, I think last time there was a talk of everybody's really got to expect to manage their own risks. So what is the advice to those that have shielding letters, and what will be the position for them moving forward? So
the new letters will go into a lot more detail than this, Tim, around people. But our advice to vulnerable people and those shielding is, with the low risk of infection out in the community, we believe they should now be able to go out, to be able to meet up with friends, families, with appropriate social distancing in place. For those that, but it's a personal choice. I know there will be some people who are still not in that space. I've spoken to people who've said even if we give them the advice to go out, they feel they're not there yet, that they will continue shielding or continue self-isolation, and that's perfectly okay. But what we're saying is, with the low level of transmission that's there now in the community, we believe now is the right time for people to be able to go out if they wish. We are not saying to people that they must stay indoors. So we will be putting it into the hands of those people to make a decision. They know themselves about their conditions better than anyone, and they know what's right for them. So the basic message is, do what is right for you.
Okay, I've given Tim an extra one. So Chris, do you want to come in with a question?
Yes, please. Just in terms of these establishments which are reopening, I know there was a question earlier this week regarding hairdressers and the data in which they will take to comply with GDPR rules or how we best contact trace. You said you were going to come back to us with information on that. Do you have that available to you at the moment?
Yes, the necessary legislation regulation was passed giving them the powers to do that without any fear of being prosecuted. I don't know, David, were you involved with that at all?
Yes, the regulation, Chris, is in place. It's been through Tynwald, so it is perfectly legal for them to collect and hold that data. It is necessary for contact tracing purposes, and it is perfectly legal for them to do so.
Okay.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah. Any further questions from Josh or from Simon? Simon, do you want to come in? Just on mute, Simon. You're still on mute, Simon.
I'm sorry, yes. Thank you, Chief Minister. Yeah. Do you think there'll come a point where we just have to accept this as a new and frightening disease that we may or may not contract at some time in our lives, like hundreds of others, really, and simply resume lives as normal?
Well, I think at some stage we will have to accept that, but I think when the infection rate has significantly reduced around the world, this will have to be looked at. But having said that, there are companies who are confident, Simon, that a vaccine will be available. Some say next year, some are trying to beef it up and say it'll be the end of this year. I don't know when it will be available, but once the number of cases is down to a really small number, then we are going to have to get on with our lives, and hopefully by the time that comes down, a vaccine will be there to help protect those of our population who are more vulnerable and susceptible to this dreadful illness. And who knows, being a pessimist, it could mutate, but yeah, we're going to have to get used to it and get back to, as I've been saying, a new Manx normal, where we will have to think a little bit more about our personal safety and our personal health. Josh, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just one final one off the back of my previous question to the Health Minister. Will relaxations be brought in on the maternity ward, and has there been any changes there?
So at the moment, no, we're not changing the advice on the maternity ward. That is still classed as a high-risk area. So for the time being, and I know this causes worry and concern for many people, I've responded to many people personally, but having reviewed the visiting policy around maternity, that is one of the areas not currently being changed, but it will be considered again, as with all policies, on a 2-weekly basis. Just coming in on the back of, since it was from your first question, with herd immunity, it's just to add, Josh, that I think we've got to be very careful with the term herd immunity, because there's scientific arguments over the benefit of herd immunity, and you've got to really reach 60% of the population being infected before any sort of scientific theory of herd immunity kicks in, and that is a mass infection point to reach. So I would be very, I don't think herd immunity should really be an ambition of any government around the world.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Please keep safe and keep your loved ones safe. Remember the basics, hand washing and social distancing is still incredibly important. Don't forget, it is the basics that have got us here, and it is those same basics that will keep us safe through this next phase. I will see you next week. Please stay safe. Thank you all very, very much. Bye-bye.